The day has finally come, guys. It's been nearly 8 months since the last installment in the series, but better late than never, here we are with another episode of Standoff. A special seasonal episode between two stand users who are sure to make you feel a chill. Part 5's Gyacho and his stand White Album versus Part 8's Kyoni Jimura and her stand Born This Way. Two stands that are based off ice elemental powers and have very unique but effective forms of movement. So to get started, let's first look at Gyacho and his stand White Album. Stand user being Gyacho, a member of La Squadra di Esecuzione, with the purpose of trying to eliminate the Passione traders, otherwise known as the main cast. So for short, Gyacho is a Part 5 minor villain, and his name Gyacho means ice in Italian, which fits the theme of characters being named after Italian cuisines and ingredients in Part 5. And of course, corresponds with his stand ability being White Album, which is in reference to the Beatles' self-titled studio album, also known as the White Album, for its album art, or rather, lack of album art, which also ties into the stand's ability and design. So starting with the stand's ability, as it's seen before the stand itself, you should all at least know White Album makes things cold. Anything Gyacho comes in contact with, as well as anything within a close proximity to him, sort of in his personal space, can be lowered in temperature with what he describes as his cryogenic cold, which means artificially creating extremely low temperatures in a short amount of time. In White Album's case, nearly instantaneously, being able to drop temperatures down to a shocking negative 100 degrees Celsius, or negative 148 degrees Fahrenheit, with ease in a matter of seconds, first shown when Gyacho was on top of the Gain's car, causing everything inside to freeze, like the brakes, and even missed his finger, making it so cold it was completely numb, and just shattered off his hand like glass, and he didn't even notice that he was missing a finger. Gyacho is also able to reverse the effects of White Album just as fast, being able to restore anything he has frozen back to its previous temperature, at will, again, instantaneously. So after Gyacho shows off his main ability, Mista and Giorno are actually able to get him off the car for a few seconds by using their stands together. But by creating space between themselves and Gyacho, he was able to show off even more of his ability, and we see White Album's full appearance for the first time, introducing the concept of suit stands, White Album being the first stand that completely contained the stand user and acted as a suit of armor. And as if a suit of armor wasn't cool enough, it's also a stand on skates. And the ice skates part of White Album's design are in a way their own ability, as they allow Gyacho to skate at extremely high speeds, nearly 50 miles per hour, being able to easily catch up with the Gain's car. But what's unique about the skates is that Gyacho doesn't need to freeze the ground while moving. For whatever reason, White Album's skates are able to glide across surfaces like asphalt, for example, as if it was ice. Furthermore, when White Album is fully activated, the suit pretty much increases all physical features: speed, strength, durability, and defense. At one point, we see Gyacho completely destroy a stone statue with a single punch, and consistently be invulnerable to Mista's bullets, as they are never able to penetrate the stand, and same goes for Gold Experience's punches. And it's not so much that the armor of White Album is unbreakable, it's that White Album is able to freeze oncoming attacks and essentially stop them as soon as they make contact. But on top of all of this, White Album also has another form of defense, which is pretty close to being a substance similar to Epitaph, and it's Gyacho's Gently Weeps, which is in reference to the Beatles song While My Guitar Gently Weeps. It's pretty much cryogenic cold, but to an absolute maximum. White Album drops the temperature in his personal space to an absurd negative 210 degrees Celsius, which is so cold it's the temperature where air itself turns into solid ice, and is extremely close to the coldest temperature in the world, which is negative 273 degrees Celsius, where the motion of all matter is completely stopped. So with Gently Weeps activated, it creates a maze of ice shards around Gyacho's body, protecting his only weak point, which is his breathing apparatus that brings oxygen into his suit, and it's located on the back of his neck. So not only does the stand only have one weak point and already extremely powerful abilities, it has a secondary, almost sub-stand-like ability that is completely dedicated to protecting that one weak spot, as well as providing offensive capabilities, being able to deflect oncoming projectiles by ricocheting off of Gently Weeps. And on top of Gently Weeps' defensive capabilities and offensive capabilities, it's also extremely hard to see, making it sort of a stealth ability, as it freezes the air, and we're able to see it in the manga, but I guess to Mista and the enemies, it's sort of transparent, and the only way they were able to identify it was by Giorno using his own blood to create a different color onto the ice shards. So every time Mista shot gently Weeps before he was able to clearly see it, they would just ricochet the bullets right back at him and hit him pretty much every time. Reading this fight for the first time was one of the only times in JoJo I truly thought that there is absolutely no way to beat this stand user. White Album just seemed absurdly powerful, and to this day, it is still one of the most foolproof stand abilities. Its power is just on a smaller scale from some of the higher tier stand abilities that involve global manipulation and interdimensional access. But nonetheless, White Album is no stand to take lightly and would have to have some real competition to be defeated, considering it took both Gold Experience and Sex Pistols to just barely defeat. So let's see how a stand with similar abilities stacks up. JoJoLands Kyo Nijimura and her stand Born This Way. Kyo Nijimura is the alias used by Kyo Joestar Kira, the daughter of Holly Joestar Kira and brother of Yoshikage Kira, but hides her identity while taking on the role of the Higashikata family maid, as she has ulterior motives when it comes to the Higashikata family. And if you aren't caught up to JoJoLands yet, this is all probably sounding very bizarre, so just read it, it's good, I promise. But let's move on to her stand, Born This Way, with a musical reference just as beautiful as Kyo herself, Lady Gaga's album and song titled Born This Way. Although the stand was originally called Going Underground, a song by The Jam, but shortly changed to Born This Way. The stand's design takes a heavy inspiration from Lady Gaga's album art being a motorcycle. But the stand Born This Way is actually two separate parts, the rider and the bike. The rider sporting a motor helmet to hide its robot stand-like appearance that can be removed, and it dresses in black motor gear, so it's hard to immediately identify Born This Way as a stand. Even the bike itself isn't very stand-like, it looks just more like a normal motorcycle, with a similar color palette to Rider. I like to think of Born This Way's design as something you'd see in everyday life, but only if you look closely would you notice its abnormal characteristics, and then realize it's not what you thought, which in itself can make simple stand designs much more terrifying. But moving on to the stand's ability, in contrast to White Album, which is completely attached to the stand user, Born This Way is an automatic type stand completely independent from Kyo. So although Kyo doesn't need to be near her target when Born This Way is active or attacking, however, she does need to at least come in direct contact with her target at some point before activating her stand. But after completing the stand's prerequisite, we see how powerful this stand really is, and how what may seem like its weakness could possibly be its biggest strength. So once Kyo decides to activate Born This Way, it will attach to her target in a metaphorical way, as it's not always visible or even manifested, but it's still attached, and will attack appearing out of thin air whenever the target opens something. And that might sound a bit vague, but it seems to be limited to physical objects, such as doors, flip phones, notebooks, and even opening pens, but will not activate from unavoidable things like blinking or opening your lips. But just as fast as the stand appears, it will also disappear when the object opened is shut. But that can be a bit difficult to do sometimes when you have a full-size motorcycle charging at you at full speed. And along with the physical power of Born This Way, attacking after the target triggers the stand, it also has its secondary ability of Freezing Wind, which is where Born This Way overlaps in abilities with White Album. Freezing Wind, as the name would imply, creates a strong gust of wind with freezing temperatures. The effects are comparable to White Album's cryogenic cold, so although it never says exactly the temperature of Born This Way's Freezing Wind, we can see it freeze Josuke's breath in midair and create ice inside his mouth. So it's comparable to Gently Weep's negative 210 degrees Celsius, which froze all of the air around Gyatso, which is very cold. Freezing Wind has also been used to freeze innocent objects like leaves and turn them into deadly projectiles, by freezing them and then moving them at high speeds at the target. And just in general, freezing everything but on a very large scale, as the stand's exact description is, when Born This Way appears, the world turns to ice. And we have seen the entire environment change because of the stand, like buildings being filled with snow when Born This Way was in pursuit for a decent amount of time and manifested in the world. So not only is this an automatic stand and deadly, it's also extremely durable and transfers no damage to Kyo. I think Medi Not The Bad Guy summed the stand up best in his It Just Works Born This Way video, saying the stand is essentially a much larger and more dangerous sheer heart attack. I really don't see any way Josuke could have defeated Born This Way if it wasn't for his personal connection to Kyo. If Josuke wasn't actively trying to reach Kyo's mother, and Kyo having suspicion of Josuke, Born This Way could have easily stayed active and just pursued Josuke until killing him. Really, the only weakness the stand showed was temporarily being able to stop Freezing Wind by knocking the rider off of the bike, but it still doesn't do any real damage, only prolongs the next attack. Because the Born This Way fight was so early in JoJoLand, I feel like a lot of people forgot this stand, but more specifically, forgot how powerful it was. I mean, I thought White Album was easily going to outshine Born This Way when I first conceptualized this video, but after revisiting the stand, I was completely wrong. This is probably one of the best matchups in standoff ever. So now that we know what these stands are capable of, let's compare their abilities and see which one of these ice manifesting stands is superior. Starting with Cryogenic Cold versus Freezing Wind. Their effects are shockingly similar. Looking at Mista and Giorno in the car, and then at Josuke on the street, it appears to be pretty much the exact same. Of course, with Born This Way, you also have a motorcycle charging at you that is near invincible with the stand user nowhere to be found. And even though White Album is the complete opposite with the stand and the stand user being one, they are pretty much just as durable as we saw with all of his forms of defense. The main difference being that Gyacho is able to act on his own accord and adapt to the situation to use his ability best, in contrast to Born This Way's automatic nature and needing a trigger to activate, making that really the only reason it's not just completely broken. And as we have seen throughout the series, automatic stands can be manipulated quite easily when the right abilities are involved and when the nature of the enemy stand has been revealed. And automatic stands are never as adaptable and quick-witted as directly controlled stands. But even though Born This Way is automatic, really the only way I could see to manipulate it is just try my best not to open anything. And even that isn't foolproof, as we saw Kyo force Born This Way on Josuke. But of course, by doing that, she reveals herself and gives her enemy a chance to attack her. So once you figure the stand's ability out of opening things, activating it, it's really just a matter of discipline and self-awareness, hoping that the stand user shows up. But there is a chance Kyo just plays the waiting game and lets her target continue to live an impractical life of not being able to open things. And that is a lot of nonsense, when White Album on the other hand can be on the attack constantly, putting pressure on the enemy, suffocating them with aggression. Although Born This Way is faster, more durable, and has infinite stamina, I would still have to say White Album is the deadlier stand ability overall and does the job of killing and freezing more effectively than Born This Way. But there is still a ton of room for discussion between this matchup, so go down in the comment section and argue with people on which stand you think is better and why. You can also throw your pick in a poll in the top right of the video to see which stand is most voted on by the community. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this special return episode of Standoff, and I just wanted to let people know why this series was on hiatus and will probably continue to be on hiatus. The point of Standoff is to take two stands with similar abilities, compare them, and see which one does a better job at what they're trying to achieve, or just which one is able to take that genre of ability and utilize it the best. And I've already done about 22 episodes, I believe, give or take, and there's not a lot of similar stands left. If I wanted to continue the series, it would just have to be a full-on deathmatch series about stands that have nothing to do with each other. For example, C-Moon versus D4C or something like that. And that's not really what Standoff is about, so until then, I'm fine with this series being what it was, and maybe if there's more stands introduced that have similar abilities to stands from previous parts, we would do another episode. Because don't forget, JoJo is still an ongoing manga, and there are new stands revealed nearly every 5 months or so. So I just want to thank you guys for all the love, support, and appreciation you have shown towards this series and just the channel in general. This won't be the last episode of Standoff, it will probably just be a long time in between episodes. But of course, all of my regular JoJo videos will continue, my monthly chapter reviews, character analysis, stand analysis, as well as concepts within JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. And there will probably be some new series emerging in time. I also wanted to let you guys know ahead of time that the next video I'm going to be releasing is going to be the first video I've made that is not JoJo related in nearly 2 years. I'm really excited, yet really nervous to see how my audience will respond to a video that's not about JoJo, and I just want to let you guys know in this video, just so no one freaks out and thinks I'm done with JoJo or I'm not making JoJo videos anymore. As I told you guys before, all of that will continue. I just always get questions like, xForts, when will you ever make a video that's not JoJo? Or do you ever plan on making videos on other types of series or anything like that? And my answer has always been, yeah, when something interests and triggers my creative ambition. But as of right now, for the better part of 2 years now, really the only thing I've had interest in making content about is JoJo. But recently, I really had an itch to make a video talking about a specific character from one of my favorite TV shows, being Stranger Things. So without giving away too much information, the next video is going to be a character analysis from within the Stranger Things universe. So hopefully, for those of you that have seen the show, are excited for that video. If you haven't, it's only a 17-episode series, 2 seasons on Netflix, 8 episodes in season 1, 9 in season 2. Really short, really interesting series, and I recommend you guys watch it because it's one of my favorites, and I plan on continuing to make videos from that series. So anyways, thank you all for watching. I just wanted to let everyone know ahead of time so no one freaks out. But I'm extremely nervous to release this video. Hopefully everything goes well and my channel doesn't explode. Thank you all for watching this episode of Standoff. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe for more, and have a wonderful day.